without any further ado, Mike Gabriel, known to most people. If you didn't know him before, you saw him yesterday. Yeah, Mike, I'll give you the mic.
Yeah, so my name is Mike Gabriel. I'm a Debian developer. Also, at the moment, well, I guess coordinating Lomiri upstream development a little bit with a few other people, some names, Rajnan, for example. He's also coordinating the Lomiri integration on the Ubuntu Touch side and being the release manager there. I'm also the CEO of a company in Germany called Freie Software or Free Software GmbH, which is the legal suffix of a company in Germany. And we have a policy: we will only work on projects if at least 60% of the project gets published. So as open source, as free software. So this talk will be quite confusing actually, because I'll be changing background images continuously. So because we are actually, when it comes to Lomiri, we have to, from my perspective, in my project that's currently a sponsored project on Lomiri and Lomiri in Debian, we have three perspectives. We have Lomiri upstream, we have Lomiri in Ubuntu Touch, and we have Lomiri in Debian. So, and you will maybe recognize from the background images what I'm talking about. It's also in the headlines, but so don't feel confused if the background colors change from time to time. So, and here they are. So let me sort of recap a little bit of the history of Lomiri. So I will be really quick with this. So it originated as Unity 8, was dropped in 2017. Upstream maintenance of Unity 8 was picked up by UBports Foundation or by UBports team at that time. At some point around 2020, I was already involved and decided to actually fork the project. So get everything Unity-ish out of the names in the code repositories, get everything Ubuntu-ish out of the names in the code repositories, and get Lomiri to run on any Linux distribution. So at that time, Unity 8, or the beginnings of Lomiri were sort of, they were caught in Ubuntu only. So the outstanding feature in Ubuntu Touch's environment, and also that's Lomiri then, is the convergence. And it basically means that we have one operating environment for all kinds of devices, from a smartwatch to a smartphone, to a tablet, to a desktop. And I'm actually also looking into getting Lomiri onto terminal servers. So to have that served over a remote desktop application service. So other than, I guess Phosh is also fully free, but other Linux-based phone operating systems are not fully free. So with Lomiri, we have the outstanding situation that this is really 100% open source. And we as a community also have a say in that it stays like that. So that said, we are a community, but we are also financially backed, as you might know, some of you. I'll come to that later. So in my project, we have funding sustainably allocated until July 2027. So, and that gives my company quite a good position in hiring people, planning ahead, and really asking for complex tasks to be solved on paid budget. So that's really a nice thing to have, and it's a privilege. Of course, Lomiri is consumer of Mir and of something we call Ayatana indicators. And here we actually are interfacing with different groups in the open source world. So Mir is also used in MirAway, for example, and also the LXQt people in Ubuntu have switched to Mir. And the Budgie people, they are also looking into integrating into the Mir compositor and using that. And with Ayatana indicators, so you can use them on Mate desktop, you can use them in Lomiri. We hope for the Unity 7 people in Ubuntu that they also switch over at some point. We would support that. So the conversions thing, I'll skip over this because I guess all of you know. It's just a representation of having all these devices available and Lumiri being adaptable to that. And not just run on a phone and you have to restart the thing to run it on a desktop, but you can really plug in a display and it adjusts on the fly. So I would like to sort of explain some, well, a bit of terminology actually. So especially because the Lomiri and the Ubuntu Touch project are so closely intertwined, it's good to differentiate between those two. So basically Ubuntu Touch is a distribution. It's a derivative of Ubuntu, and we are providing packages as a distribution does. We are trying to provide installation pathways of the system. So that is Ubuntu Touch. And Ubuntu Touch is shipping Lomiri as its primary environment. And Ubuntu Touch even has the limitation we won't have any other environment, because then it would not be the Ubuntu Touch experience anymore. At the same time, Lomiri is an upstream project of its own that can now be packaged by other distributions. So, disentangling this intertwinement is not always easy, especially when trying to explain that. If it comes to development of Lomiri within Ubuntu Touch, so as code reviews, we always have to be aware of code changes if they sort of improve something in Ubuntu Touch, but will break stuff outside of Ubuntu Touch. We can't have code changes in that way. So we request from the contributors to actually adjust and provide a solution that works in Ubuntu Touch and improves the situation and is either ignored outside of it or implemented in a different way. So, and last but not least, what was really a requirement for offering Ubuntu Touch to other distros was releasing every individual code component on its own, so that we have, it's like, I don't know, 80 components or so, or 60, 70, I don't have the exact numbers now, but so each of these components has its own versioning scheme, basically, and we try to sort of publish the new releases of individual components quite regularly. And this is completely independent from what Ubuntu Touch releases. So sometimes there is a temporal coincidence, or it's sort of happening at the same time, that we release a lot of single separate components or individual components with an Ubuntu Touch OTA, but it doesn't have to be that way. So this picture is just for information that it exists. So we kind of know what we're doing when we try to bring code from here to there between, and also to differentiate between what is Lomiri upstream, what is Ubuntu Touch, what is Debian, and where is actually software coming from. So it's a very complex scheme, and you don't try to digest it now. I can provide it to you afterwards, and also, if you're interested, explain it more closely. Especially in this complex intertwinement in Ubuntu Touch, Lomiri, Debian, Ubuntu, we have to know where upstream is, and we have to make sure that whatever is derived from upstream does not diverge too much from where it comes from. But everything we do with a portion of code, it would be good to get the changes that we do as upstream as possible, so we don't have to care about them anymore, but they, on the upstream side, have. But that's basically, you can read the intertwinement from this and how the workflows are in terms of providing software to an end device. I would start with a state of the union of Lomiri, so it's a bit like a state of the union, really. Then I will hop over to Ubuntu Touch, and then I will hop over to Debian, and and that will be basically what we go through in this talk, so that you have an idea of the status of Lomiri development. That's currently what it is at the moment. So for one thing, Qt5 is dead. So Ubuntu, vanilla Ubuntu, they threatened to actually kick it out of 26.04, but they didn't manage, which is good for us, because Lomiri is still on Qt5, and in 26.04 we can still have it. If they had kicked out Qt5, it would be gone. Lomiri would be gone from Ubuntu Vanilla. So that's good, but it also means a lot of work. So we are currently transitioning all the individual components from Qt5 to Qt6 in a certain order. We hope to have a Qt6 SDK available in autumn this year, so that people can start developing apps based on Qt6. So one really big package of that is actually getting all the unit tests. So we have code, we test the code at build time, and these tests fail when you port something from one widget toolkit version to another. So we basically have the situation that a lot of Qt6 unit tests have been failing, and we're lucky to find someone who's really loving unit tests. So he's really in love with them, and he's doing a really good job. So that's Hendrik, and he has been working on Lomiri UI toolkit unit test coverage for the past half year already. And we are getting there to really squeeze them down to zero, the failures. So then we have been asked a lot of times, okay, what is the best development environment for Lomiri components? So not apps, but parts of the core. So and then we ran into the problem that at some earlier time we started bringing all the components to Debian. We realized that the packaging that originally Canonical did in Unity 8 was partially wrong, so we fixed that. But then our packaging was slightly different from the packaging in Ubuntu Touch. So, and then you couldn't take an Ubuntu Touch package and build it on Debian. So it was always a bit difficult. Okay, where do I get code from, and what can I test, and where can I test it? So we tried to smoothen that out, really, so that at the Salsa to UBports syncing project, Salsa is the GitLab platform of Debian, so that's where all the Debian packages get, or most of the Debian packages get prepared. So we try to make it possible that you can simply take the upstream Lomiri code, and there is a Debian folder inside, so you can build a Debian package from that. That this Debian package build can be used on Ubuntu Vanilla 26.04, or it can be used on Debian Testing Unstable to test your development effort. So you don't need an Ubuntu Touch environment anymore after this project is finished to test and develop code for Lomiri. So that was really an important thing. It doesn't bring new features, it takes a lot of time, but it really has this outstanding, it gives the option to actually develop within the ecosystem that you like. So, but not Arch, obviously, but within this DApp-based ecosystem, you can choose your favorite environment. So then we have one really disadvantage in Lomiri compared to other operating environments, because it wasn't a big thing at that time when Canonical started Unity 8, but it is nowadays. We don't have XDG desktop portal support. So which basically means if we open a GNOME app on Lomiri, it will not use Content Hub, for example. Or if we use a Lomiri app outside of Lomiri, it wants to use Content Hub. So it breaks the user experience. So if you sort of mix non-Lomiri and Lomiri apps, or or some other environment with Lomiri apps. So we really want to get this problem solved. We have some ambitious guy from Israel who who started working on that, but the situation in Israel is sort of unpredictable these days. So he is there on and off, also studying. And we will try to chime in actually and support him with development power, basically. So assign a developer to that project. So then we have a transition from Mir 1 to Mir 2 ongoing, and one of the big issues was the trust prompts. So they are Mir 1 dependent, and Mir 2 is the next kid on the block, or the next version of Mir as being the kid on the block. And Alfred actually moved the trust prompts implementation from Mir 1, Mir Client API to Wayland, so which is a big step forward, which means actually he has a prototype where Lomiri runs on a Mir 2 on a phone in Ubuntu Touch, but it's only a prototype. It's an individual device that unfortunately he didn't bring here. And then a new project we just discussed 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. we were wondering about, so what is the best way to integrate cloud syncing support, syncing of files, especially in this case, into Ubuntu Touch, and with that into Lomiri. And and Capsier, or Riccardo Riccio, as his real name is, he has started looking into that in depth, and he will bring it natively into the file manager and into Lomiri system settings. So the apps you know at the moment, like Ghost Cloud and UBsync, when this is done, they will be actually obsolete, because Lomiri will have these features natively. And the backend we will use for that is the storage framework. It's something that Canonical wrote for running backups, basically, of the user profile. But it's also something that can integrate with rclone. And this is a command line utility which is quite versatile and knows a lot of cloud provider backends: Cfile, Nextcloud, OwnCloud, OpenCloud, and whatnot. Yeah. So, and another new project we just kicked off is to integrate SIP telephony support natively into the dial app, so that you can now select between SIM1 and SIM2 for making a phone call, and you will be able to select then between SIM1, SIM2, and your SIP provider or various SIP providers. So some more details about the Qt6 transitioning roadmap. And this is Lomiri now. So the Morph browser for Qt6 is there. It's available in Debian unstable Debian testing and also for Debian 13. We have something called the Lomiri PPA. I'll get to that. It's also available there. But we are a bit stuck in a mess, and I will get to that in one of the next slides for Ubuntu Touch. So, but it's the application works. It uses Qt6 web engine. We have a Chromium engine version 130 or 134 in the vanilla Debian and Ubuntu. So that's actually quite promising, and website rendering suddenly works again. So this is good. One more thing, I think I mention it here because it fits here, but I think it appears also on one of the other slides. And we quite recently added DRM support to Morph. So, then what's currently ongoing, as I said, is to provide all the necessary Qt6 libraries and whatnot to actually code Lomiri apps in Qt6. So that's also ongoing. So then we have started porting the core apps to Qt6, so it's actually also that order. So libraries first, then apps, and then user session services, and then the shell. So we can't do everything in one step, because then people would just have to wait and the system would be broken. So we really created a plan of iteratively getting into the Qt6 world with Lomiri. And we are mixing Qt5 and Qt6 components for a while. Yeah, so I explained this a little bit in the Ubuntu Touch podcast, the Q&A yesterday. So we are currently a bit stuck with a misjudgment or misdecision regarding bumping to Qt6.9 for Ubuntu Touch, and at the same time breaking Morph on hybrid devices. So the details are in the Q&A, so I will not go into these details again. But there's a fix coming, and I think I'll get to working on that this afternoon, so that we actually get Morph browser Qt6 working again in Ubuntu Touch. Yeah, here's the DRM thing. So it's something that we want for Ubuntu Touch especially, but it will also be available to other distros. Another thing we would like to introduce for the 24.4.2.x release is a shift in the address book backend, which then will allow native syncing of contacts to Nextcloud and OwnCloud and any other CardDAV-based syncing server. Yeah, and as I mentioned, sort of as a teaser, Alfred is working at the moment on the Mir 2.x transition. So, and as I said, he has this prototype at home where you could see if it was here, that is actually working. So, and also the concept is actually quite cool because we have 3 blockers. One was the trust bombs that's solved in the code. One is ethercasts, so presenting to a beamer or whatever. And then the third thing is, that's actually rated, so it's ethercast and the screen recorder. And I've forgotten the third thing. So anyway, so the trick is actually in Ubuntu Touch we have layered mirrors. So we have mirror 1 on mirror 1, and the screencast on the so ethercast and the screen recorder, they hook into the lower level of mirror, whereas the shell is running on the upper level. And and we stay with mirror 1 on the lower level, so we don't break ethercast and screen recording, for example, but we switch to mirror 2 on the upper level. And that will bring full Wayland support into the Lomiri shell. GNOME applications will look really, really good afterwards. So it will just have full Wayland support. Yeah. So, and this is basically again a summary of what I've been just referring to. So, Lomiri and Debian. So this is basically the whole history since 2024, and the idea basically was, so we were a bit like stubborn. We wanted to show that Lomiri can be packaged outside of Ubuntu. So this is where we all set off as a project to really fork Lomiri from Unity 8 and make it independent from Ubuntu. So that was quite an energy effort. And we achieved that during 2025, so that was it. So in the first quarter of 2025, that was all finished. So the second goal and also motivation was to get a tablet environment into Debian. And at that time, we didn't have any. So now we have 2 because the FOSH people also did a good job. So, and I love diversity and choice. So people can now choose between, so there's actually a third one, but that's more like a tiling window manager. It's quite nerdy. But people have choice in Debian now regarding the operating environment. And by prototyping the packaging for Debian, showing that it works in a very vanilla-ish distribution, we also could show that, if you're on Arch, if you're on Nix, take the thing, package it. It will work. And it will not just work packaging-wise, it will also work at runtime. So you won't be missing any features that you are used to from Ubuntu Touch or Ubuntu. Then there was the Debian 13 release, where the first 3 dots are, and then we have our next goals, which we're currently working on, which is switching to Qt6 also in Debian with the Lomiri components. Having XD portal support, consolidating all the instabilities and fixing bugs. And the current project focuses on getting educational software for Lomiri into Debian and make Lomiri on Debian a real alternative to iPads in schools. So at the very end, we would like to see actually one operating system or one operating environment for all devices in enterprise Linux. So status in Debian 13 is basically, Debian 13 is stable, it's kind of frozen, but we have the opportunity to get in updates via stable release updates. So, and at the moment I have just proposed a QDMIR update to the release team, and I will, when that is through, because Lomiri is depending on that, I will propose a Lomiri release update. And we just had a point release this weekend, so I have 2 more months for the next point release to get these landed. And this will actually fix a lot of graphical and input quirks that we currently see in Lomiri in Debian 13. So we provided already Debian Morph Browser Qt6 via Debian 13 backports. So that's already available and it works. So we also have some limitations in the network indicator in the version that is in Debian 13 because it can't do cable LAN connections. I mean, network manager just connecting, but it's not getting shown in the UI. And we have that in Ubuntu Touch now. It's working, and we will bring that to Debian unstable and then backport it for Debian 13 so that this also has more, feels like a good feature set for a Lomiri indicator network. And then, for example, I'd really like to bring teleports into stable backports as well, because, for example, searching in the backlog of a chat log is not possible with the version we have in Debian 13. It would be nice to have that for Debian users of Debian Stable. And also here, the context is, at the moment for this Debian 13 initiative, that I have a customer in city of Lübeck, and they want to acquire a set of Microsoft Surface 6 Pros, used devices, and they would love to ship Debian 13, a stable Debian system, not Debian testing, on these devices, so we try to polish everything in Debian 13 for that. So then Debian 14, which is the upcoming release, a year from now, approximately, maybe a bit more. 1.5, between that. So this is where we try to land all the packaging efforts that we're doing at the moment. And there is a strong team of 4 Debian developers at the moment active on that. And what we try is that we try to tightly chase what Lomiri Upstream is doing. And the advantage is that I have both hats on, so I can cut upstream releases of Lomiri, and then my team and myself, we can upload these releases then to Debian Unstable, so we can really do this in short iterations, have short release cycles of individual components, and get the things landed as soon as they are mature enough on the upstream Lomiri side. I'll get to that with one of the next slides. We have a thing called the Lomiri PPA. And this is basically something where we provide all the packages that we have in Unstable and rebuild them against a Ubuntu 24.04 system, and since Friday, this week, against the 26.04 system. So in 26.04, I'll get to that. There's another slide for that. But as a teaser, the Debian developer team working on Lomiri and Debian is populating this Lomiri PPA. Whenever they do an upload, they run a script, and then the next version of a component is built on the PPA. So we have one more person, and I have a screenshot for that as well. So we will become an official installation environment in the Debian installer. So Lomiri you will be able to install Lomiri from the Debian installer. And for that to happen, there will be Debian Live images with Lomiri. So for that to happen, you need to make sure that your operating environment is actually working when it's shipped with Debian. So we have the ISO images of the Debian installer based on Debian testing. They get put into a Jenkins pipeline, and then from there on, we have OpenQA unit tests that are run. So we really, like in a virtual environment, fire up, install a machine, fire up the machine, log in. We can sort of simulate keyboard input and mouse input, and also touch events. So, and the idea is to immediately realize when something is sort of not working anymore. At the moment, we are in the phase where we try to get things working, so a lot of integration tests are yellow or red, but we're getting there. And there's one developer just working on this. Actually, one of the quality assurance guys in Debian, actually, they requested to have Morph Browser Qt6 removed from Debian testing and Unstable, and make Qt6 Morph Browser the default, the only one. When I discussed with Roland, who's doing these OpenQA integration tests, so he asked me, Mike, what do you think? What's the maturity level? And I said, I have a number, okay? And I will not change this number now when you say me yours, but say me yours first. So I wanted to get his opinion, and he said he was a bit scared because he's getting paid for things, but he said 4. And I said, yeah, 4 is the number I have as well. So 4 means we are not halfway there to meet the standards of a desktop environment or operating environment in Debian. And this is partly because we are not there yet on the upstream side. So XDG Desktop Portal is something that we need. It's partly related to Lomiri on desktop. So we have some windows that we open them and they are opened off screen. You can't reach the top bar, you can't move the windows to the center of the screen. So some nasty bugs, but these make usability really awkward. And also we lack multi-monitor support, totally. So it's really, and this is one reason why I can't continuously run Lomiri as a daily driver on my development machine, because I have 3 monitors to attach to. So, and then if I unplug, my session is gone. So, this is not really working, and we need to get these solved. You cannot log into Lomiri with the greeter if a second monitor is attached. So then the login field is in the one monitor and the mouse pointer is in the other. And you can't leave with the mouse point. Yeah, anyway. So there are still some kinks, and Roland, as someone who's looking at the UI very intensively, noticed all these. And I asked him, actually, whatever you find, please find a bug somewhere. And if you think the solution is a quick solution, please also send patches. So, and he's really like software testing the whole beast. Yeah, so I have an image of OpenQA. If you don't know it, how it looks, let's take a look. So you basically, you have a workflow, you have a script that, well, shoves in the CD, the ISO, runs the installation, clicks or hits some keys virtually, clicks at some locations on the screen virtually, and then screenshots are taken regularly. And then there are these things here, the images, and they are called needles. So then OpenQA is waiting for something to happen on the screen that it expects. And when that comes, it considers the test as successful. So it's not looking for the whole image of the screenshot, but it's just looking for a logo somewhere, or a command line prompt, or an icon, or the clock, something like that. So you define these needles, and if at a certain stage the screenshot matches what the needle expects or what the needle defines, then the test is successful. So, and here we have some green tests, but I didn't bring the red and yellow test results. So there's a lot of stuff to work on still. So then yesterday, well, actually earlier, but yesterday I learned where to actually provide improvements for it. So in Debian, we package Ubuntu Touch apps, and we want to do this even more. The problem is that the Ubuntu Touch apps, as they get created with Clickable, they can't be built for a normal Linux system, because then your desktop icon will be in the root folder, just at the very base of your operating system, but it should be in yours or share applications, for example. And same with artwork. So the installation path of the Click packages as defined in CMake, they don't work for normal distribution, and they don't work for NixOS either. So, and now actually I learned where to modify the template, so that we at the end actually have apps that I can just throw into a Debian package and build the package and done. Without, now it's so like every app has to be patched. We have to send a merge request to the maintainer. They say, what's that? I don't understand that. So it's fine with Clickable? Yeah, it is, yeah. So, but we try to get there. So not by fixing every app. We will also do that for existing apps, by also preventing that new apps will actually show that problem anymore. Yeah, so we have some apps already, we have some more. I focused on educational stuff like the ear trainer and the fretboard trainer, so stuff for musicians that could be used for music lessons in school or for training. There's also an internet radio app which is coming. I've looked at the Fahrplan app, which is broken in Ubuntu Touch, unfortunately for Deutsche Bahn.de these days, and for 92 as well, I learned. Yeah, I realized when I traveled here. Yeah, we'll get to that. And we want to make these apps natively available as deb packages. So you can just, in Debian 4Key, you can install Lumiri Fahrplan app, and it's there. Okay, so this is about now vanilla Ubuntu, and especially 26.04. So Lumiri landed in Ubuntu 26.04, and it's installable and works quite well because it's using what we, some weeks ago had in Debian Unstable. At the same time, we realize, we fix things on the run, and we have the luck that since February we have an Ubuntu core maintainer in our team. So, and that guy knows how to bring updates to an LTS of Ubuntu. So if we really identify a bug that's really grave and that needs to be fixed in vanilla Ubuntu, he can do that. So I'm really happy about that. At the same time, we want to enable people that they can use Ubuntu 24.04 or 26.04 as a daily driver with latest Lumiri packages or as a development environment. And for this, we have the PPA, which is under that given URL. And we have 3 PPAs there, so ignore the one in the middle, which is for the Lumiri Remix installer, which is also coming. So there will be an Ubuntu Lumiri Remix based on 26.04. And the other 2 are basically, the one is in sync with Debian Unstable, and the other one is in sync with Debian Unstable, but a bit behind. So whenever I feel, it's working quite well at the moment, then I copy over the packages from the one PPA to the other. So, and one is PPA Lumiri builds, and the other one is PPA Lumiri stable. Yeah. And for example, actually I still have to runtime test that. But we built, I brought Qt6 Web Engine 6.10 with Chromium Engine 134, I guess, which is the most recent thing we currently have. Wait a sec. I brought that to the PPA, and which should enable us to have a latest Morph browser. And from my tests on Debian, this also fixes some login problems, for example, on GitLab. So the Morph, the Cloudflare "Are you a human?" checks, they were broken kind of in the previous versions of Qt6 Web Engine. And with my test on Debian testing with Qt6 Web Engine 6.10, they were working again. So let's see how that looks and how that is in the PPA. Okay, this is the PPA. So if you go to the URL that I just showed, till Lumiri, you get quite a good instruction how to set up your system. If you're a Dutch person and you want to have everything in Dutch, then make sure you have the Dutch language package and also the Dutch layout for the Lumiri keyboard, the on-screen keyboard. Yeah, so, but it's basically quite simple to get the thing installed. And as I said, we have 26.04 support in the PPA since 2 days. Yeah, so what's the current perspective? So for Lumiri Upstream, it is so we have a budget that is sustained until July 2027, and we are not spending enough money per month. So we are hiring still, and we need, well, ideally people who know the Ubuntu Touch ecosystem already, ideally people who know how operating environments on Linux work, how XDG, free desktop definitions work, so that we don't have to start with Adam and Eve when we onboard them. So that's the idea. And of course, we try to encourage people if they feel like, I'm not so professional, I'm scared of being paid and then having to deliver. We will help you to get on board as a voluntary developer, as a contributor, and don't be shy. Yeah, please ask and get in touch, and communication is the first thing that will enable us. So for Ubuntu Touch, we have these 2 missions that we'll have to facilitate on the Lumiri Upstream side, which is getting Mir2 and the Buteo Sync framework into Ubuntu Touch, into 2.x, or actually I forgot to mention that we already have someone who is running a daily driver in Ubuntu Touch, with Ubuntu Touch, on 26.04. So we have packages for that in the archive. It's invisible. You can't upgrade your device to that because we don't want to handle all the bug reports that we expect then. But it's there, and after 24.04 2.x, which will be coming before the summer, I hope, there will be not a 24.04 anymore. We will bump to 26.04. And that is sort of then 8 months after the LTS release. So we are actually back on track in Ubuntu Touch. So not 7 years after 16.04 we have a focal, but 7 months or 8 months after the 26.04 we follow up with Ubuntu Touch. So that's the idea. For Debian 13 and 14, yeah, so we want to get more fixes into Debian 13 and provide nice and new stuff and upgraded apps via Debian 13. We continuously update Lomiri and Debian targeting Debian 14, so we are currently in a flow. We can upload what we want, unless we don't break experiences for the user. But there are no limitations yet because the next release freeze of Debian is a year ahead. So it's the right time to actually land stuff in Debian for the next Debian 14. Yeah, we want to improve on the OpenQA tests and to get a really good experience with Debian Live, having Lomiri on it. And also here we are happy to collaborate with people, and if you're interested in Debian maintenance, Debian packaging, also please get in touch with us. So I guess Jeremy and Torsten and me, we are the entry points into the team. Yeah, so we have Lomiri on other distributions except from Debian. I would like to mention NixOS, done by Cosima mainly. She's an employee in my company and doing a really ambitious job for NixOS. And also, so there was the initial project was getting things into NixOS, but she's continuously updating the packages. So it's a well-maintained distro for Lomiri users. Then related to the post-market OS, we have Alpine Linux, and then post-market OS, where Lomiri is also an official, what do I say, I don't know, flavor or installation image. So we have that. And yeah, in Fedora, they had an interest group a year back when I was giving a talk at DebConf, and the wiki page hasn't changed since then, but it's still there. Nobody has removed it, so maybe in the RPM world, someone is actually picking up the ball at some time, we don't know. Yeah, so we have a bounty program going on with OS-SCi.com, and so if you think, okay, I'm a real good bug hunter and I can crack nuts in code, go to the URL, the lower URL, and check what bounty bugs are there, and they are sort of a certain budget is allocated to each bounty bug, and yeah, and if you fix that and it gets approved and it really fixes the problem for the world, then you can send an invoice or you get some kind of a donation as a private person. So there are ways to handle that. And last but not least, credits to a lot of people who are in some areas or in many areas involved. I have mentioned some people, or they were in the slides, if I haven't mentioned them then, but it's really a big team effort, and we couldn't do it. So if two of them were missing, there would be one part in Lomiri where we get stuck, because we have so much expertise that's required for working on Lomiri, working on the distribution integration of Lomiri, and everyone in this list, and it's not a complete list, the list is not complete, everyone would be missed if they were gone. So yeah, and that brings me to the end of the talk. Any questions? Any feedback? Yeah. Yeah, any questions, anything you'd like to know? Yeah. So, are you referring to AI usage for coding? We will not accept that at the moment. Yeah. So, I mean, use AI for your training, for getting into the topic, but we will not integrate at the moment LLM generated patches because of it's an interpretation issue, but some of us have the opinion that you are not really safe regarding the copyright infringements that this might imply. Because we have licenses and LLM training material has licenses, and there is a big mix going on, and it's a long discussion, and it has to not be discussed here. It has to be discussed at the UBports Foundation's Board of Directors and with the members, because they are the product owner at the end of Lomiri. But this discussion hasn't happened, and nobody has kicked it off, so we do our manual work. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else? Okay. So let me just add one more thing. Because there's often quite a gap between the core development of Lomiri and the app development. So, I didn't know how to develop an app until yesterday. So, how to bootstrap it? I'm not sure how to develop it actually. And actually, thanks Eric for bringing, like Nikita is also. Do you develop apps, Nikita? No, he's really like in the Linux kernel and in Helium system and wherever. So there's just this huge bandwidth and spread of tasks in Ubuntu Touch development. So it's good to bring these different ends really together, and I really appreciate that.
So.